I woke up to the sound of balloons brushing against my ceiling, that soft plastic squeak, high and restless, like something trying too hard to be festive. It was still early, maybe 7 a.m., and the sunlight hadn't fully filled the room. But the living room lights were already on, humming too bright for a Saturday morning. I stayed in bed longer than I should have, blinking into the quiet glow that leaked under my bedroom door. They had keys, of course. I had given them my spare when I moved in 6 months ago. Just in case, Mom had said. You never know when we might need to check in. I never imagined this was what they meant. I rolled out of bed, feet cold on the wood floor, and pulled on the hoodie I'd draped over my desk chair. I didn't bother to brush my hair. Something in my chest had already dropped, the way it does when you know something's wrong before you see it. The hallway smelled like pink frosting and candle smoke. I stepped into the living room and froze. There were streamers curling down from the ceiling fan, pastel pink and soft blue, twirling like little question marks. A banner above the TV read, "Boy or girl? Guess before the big reveal." In my apartment. My coffee table, the one I built myself from an old pallet during lockdown, was now covered in cupcakes with little edible baby feet. A giant teddy bear sat on the couch where I usually read. My bookshelf had been moved to make room for a table stacked with party favors, and a confetti cannon leaned lazily against my window like a sleeping threat. I didn't even need to ask. Of course it was for Emily, my cousin. Well, technically, my stepsister now. Mom married her dad when we were both 16. She was always the louder one, the shinier one. The one who got noticed at the dinner table even when she didn't say anything worth hearing. She'd always been good at turning space into hers. I just never thought she'd do it with mine. And the worst part, the part that slid cold and slow through my chest, was the calendar. The one on the fridge. The one I updated every month. Today's square had a tiny doodle of a candle I drew last week. A candle. With a little smile. My birthday. Unopened. Unacknowledged. Overshadowed. I stood there for a moment too long, frozen in my own doorway, like a stranger walking into someone else's celebration. My apartment didn't feel like mine. The soft humming of a speaker connected to someone's phone filled the air with syrupy acoustic covers, the kind that sound like nostalgia, even if you've never heard the song before. I noticed the shoes first. Not mine. 3 pairs of white. Sneakers, a wedge heel still in its box, and a pair of tiny baby socks tucked next to a floral gift bag. And then the voices. Can we do the balloon drop before the confetti? I don't want the pink to clash with the blue if it's a boy. Emily's voice floated out from the kitchen, as casually as if she'd always lived here. Another voice, Mom's, chimed in. Let's just wait until the guests arrive, honey. And remember, we want to film your reaction. That's the moment. That's the moment, she said. Not mine. Never mine. I cleared my throat. Not loud, just enough to make my presence known. Mom turned first. She had on a pink sweater I'd seen once before, folded neatly in her suitcase the day she came to visit, for a week, and stayed through Easter. She looked surprised, not guilty, just surprised, like I'd arrived early to a dinner I wasn't invited to. Oh, you're up. Emily glanced over her shoulder, already halfway through a bite of something. Frosted. Hey, roomie, she said with a grin. Hope you don't mind. It was just so perfect here. Perfect here. My throat burned. I didn't say anything. Just watched as Mom walked over and gave me a quick, one-armed hug that didn't reach her eyes. "We were going to text you, but you were sleeping in, and we didn't want to wake you," she said. "You've been so tired lately. So tired. From work, from keeping this apartment running, from covering the bills that Mom said she'd help with but never did, from holding the space together while they treated it like a vacation rental." Looked around. My stack of sketchbooks, moved to make room for gift bags. My favorite throw blanket, folded over a folding chair I didn't recognize. The candles I light every morning, still untouched, half used, now pushed aside to make room for a diaper cake. "It's my birthday," I said quietly. I hadn't planned to say it. I didn't even say it like I wanted them to hear it. It just slipped out of my mouth, soft and small, like it had been waiting inside me all morning. Emily blinked. "Oh my God," she said. "Wait, seriously? Today? That's, like, bad planning." Then she laughed. Actually laughed. "I mean, we could always sing to you before we cut the cake, right?" The silence after that was heavy. Mom didn't say a word, just picked up a paper plate and started rearranging fruit slices. It wasn't even about the birthday. It was about being erased, about watching your mother help someone else take your space, your things, your day, and make it about themselves. Again. And I realized they didn't forget. They just didn't care. I went back to my room and closed the door. Not slammed, just closed, soft, final, like a period after a sentence that didn't need saying again. I sat on the edge of my bed, where the comforter was still wrinkled from sleep. My phone buzzed once, a bank notification. $46.12, auto-deducted for the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi they were using to stream the reveal to the rest of the family. The absurdity made me want to laugh, or cry, or maybe both. I scrolled through my messages, hoping no birthday texts, no missed calls, nothing but an ad for 20% off cupcakes. How poetic. Outside, someone squealed. A cousin, probably. Or one of Emily's friends I'd met once at Thanksgiving, who couldn't remember if I was her sister or just the roommate. They were loud now, doors opening, shoes thudding on the floor I vacuumed yesterday, laughter threading through the hallway like ribbon. I stayed sitting. Not because I didn't want to stand, but because I was afraid if I stood, I might break something. A glass. The silence. The years of trying to be the good one. Instead, I pulled the drawer open beside my bed. It was shallow and cluttered. Receipts, loose hair ties, a half-used lipstick. And beneath it all, a small envelope with a faded card inside. From Grandma. It was the last one she gave me before she passed. Handwritten, shaky cursive. Words that had been my anchor for a long time. You are not invisible. I see you even when others don't. And that's enough for now. I used to think, for now, meant that one day they would see me. That eventually, I would have a moment, a party, a speech, a memory that wasn't overwritten by someone louder, someone pinker, someone more worthy of the spotlight. But now I realized she wasn't promising I'd be seen. She was telling me to stop waiting. I tucked the card into my hoodie pocket and stood. Outside, they were arranging cupcakes into some kind of spelling. I heard Emily say, "Make sure the girl letters are right. She's gonna cry either way, but, like, aesthetically it matters." The air smelled like buttercream and synthetic joy. No one noticed when I walked past the crowd. I moved quietly, careful not to brush up against the streamers. I grabbed my coat from the hook, still there for once, and slipped my phone and wallet into my bag. Mom was too busy adjusting a ring light to look at me. Emily was laughing, hair curled in perfect waves. I stepped out into the hallway and let the door fall shut behind me. I didn't slam it, but this time it echoed. Outside, the hallway smelled like dust and quiet. Old carpet and fluorescent lights, the kind that buzz faintly when no one's speaking. It was the kind of silence that held space for you, unlike the noise behind my door, where every sound had pushed me further to the edges. I took the stairs. The elevator felt too public, too slow. I didn't want to stand beside anyone holding a glittery gift bag and pretending they knew me. My boots echoed softly against the concrete steps, each one dull and grounded. Real. When I stepped out into the cold, I didn't even have a destination. Just away. I walked without looking up, past the bakery that once gave me a free birthday cookie, past the laundromat where I'd sat for 3 hours last winter because the dryer at the apartment broke and no one else cared to fix it, past the coffee shop with the wobbly stool I always avoided. Eventually, I landed on the bench near the river walk. A narrow, crumbling thing with rust flaking off the edges and initials carved into its wooden spine. I'd sat here once in high school after a fight with Mom about something small that had somehow felt big. Back then, I told myself, one day she'll understand me. Today, I just sat. No more wishes, just space. I pulled out my phone again. Still no texts. I opened my notes app, scrolled past grocery lists, reminders to cancel streaming subscriptions, poems I never finished. Then I opened a blank page and started typing. Not for them. Not even for me. Just to get it out. Today is my birthday. There is a party in my apartment. It's not for me. It's for someone who took up more space in my mother's heart than I ever did. And I let it happen. For years, I let it happen. I gave them keys. I gave them kindness. I gave them me. And all they gave me was silence. I stared at the screen for a moment, then locked it. No tears. Not even a lump in my throat. Just stillness. The sky above me had turned that pale gray blue, the color between choices. Not day, not evening, not bright, not dark. Just waiting. Pulled Grandma's card from my hoodie pocket and read it again. You are not invisible. Somewhere back in that apartment, someone was probably shouting, "It's a girl!" And maybe they'd toss confetti. And maybe they'd take 100 photos and post them with captions like, "Best day ever." But they wouldn't remember the person who wasn't in any of them. And maybe that was the point. I stood up, slowly, my hands in my coat pockets, the envelope still tucked inside, and I walked. Not home. Not yet. I wandered for hours. The city shifted quietly around me. People moved in and out of shops, faces soft in the cold, jackets zipped up against the wind. A little girl dropped a donut and started to cry. Her dad knelt and wiped her face with his sleeve, then gave her the last bite of his own. I don't know why, but that moment stayed with me. It was the small kindness of it, the instinct to make space for someone else's pain. Something I'd stopped expecting a long time ago. Around 3, I found myself back near campus, not far from the bookstore I used to hide in after class. It still had the same chipped green door and the local author's shelf no one really looked at. Inside, it smelled like paper and floor polish, the kind of scent that wraps around your ribs and holds you gently. The guy at the counter barely looked up, just nodded once. I nodded back. I didn't need to browse. I walked straight to the back, past the poetry anthologies, to the armchair near the radiator that no one ever sat in because it was too warm. I sat, and for the first time that day, no one needed anything from me. No questions, no cupcakes, no streamers taped to my ceiling, no gaslighting smile saying we can still sing for you too. I opened my sketchbook and started to draw. Didn't even think. Just moved the pencil across the paper. Lines turned into windows, windows into rooms, rooms into shadows. The apartment. My apartment. But emptier. Quieter. Mine. I drew the door slightly ajar, light spilling through. No faces, no confetti, just a girl sitting at a table with one lit candle, and she wasn't waiting for anyone to walk in. I didn't notice how long I'd been sketching until my hand cramped. The sun had dropped lower outside. The city was preparing for dinner reservations and parking tickets and whatever it is that happens when people go back to lives they feel seen in. I closed the sketchbook and sat for a moment longer. Then I did something I hadn't let myself do all day. I opened my messages, and this time, I texted first, but not to them. Hi, do you still have that spare room open? I think I'm ready. I stared at the screen until the reply came in a few seconds later. Absolutely. It's yours if you want it. It was my friend Leah, the one who'd moved in with her partner, but still kept the lease on her old apartment just in case they needed space. At the time, I thought she was being overly cautious. Now I understood. Space isn't something you wait to be offered. Sometimes you have to claim it before you disappear. I stood up slowly, tucking the sketchbook under my arm. And for the first time all day, I didn't feel like I was running away. Felt like I was walking toward something. It was nearly dark by the time I returned. Not to stay. Just to begin the quiet act of undoing. The building was still humming when I walked in. The kind of after-party noise that carries through drywall. I could hear bursts of laughter and the crackle of a speaker someone had forgotten to mute. Didn't walk in through the front. I used the back stairs, the ones meant for maintenance staff and tenants who didn't want to be seen. I'd used them once during a fire drill. They always smelled like damp cement and loneliness. Tonight, they felt like the safest place in the world. I unlocked the door to my apartment without knocking. My key still worked. For now. Inside, it was a pastel graveyard. Balloons slumped against walls, curling from lost helium. Pink frosting hardened on half-eaten cake. Confetti drifted like tired snow across the hardwood. A half-deflated G from Girl clung to the TV stand, struggling to stay relevant. They weren't there. Not anymore. Just the aftertaste of celebration, sharp and sweet and rotten underneath. I stepped over paper plates and glitter trails, straight into my bedroom. My room, still intact. For now. I pulled out 2 suitcases from under the bed, the ones I kept, just in case. I started small. Socks, sketchbooks, my favorite mugs wrapped in sweaters, my photos, the card from Grandma. Each item felt like a thread I'd been slowly pulling from a web I didn't agree to be spun into. There was a knock at the door. I paused, breath held tight like string. It was Mom's voice, muffled, hesitant. "Honey, you home?" I didn't answer. She knocked again. I didn't know you'd be back already. Emily's staying with a friend tonight, so I thought we could maybe talk. Just us. Just us. I unzipped the suitcase all the way. She waited a moment longer. Then her voice softened the way it always did when she wanted to sound reasonable. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. You know I love you. It was just a big day for Emily, and we didn't think you'd mind. We figured you'd want to be part of it. She paused, waiting for me to open the door. I didn't. Instead, I carefully wrapped my ceramic teacup, the one with the chipped rim I never let anyone use, and tucked it into the corner of the suitcase. A quiet ceremony of goodbye. I didn't forget your birthday, she added through the door. I just didn't plan anything yet. I was waiting for the right time. I stared at the doorknob, then whispered, so softly I wasn't sure she'd hear it. You already did. I listened for a reaction, but she didn't respond. Eventually, her footsteps faded. I didn't cry, not even when I zipped the suitcase shut and looked around one last time. Instead, I walked to the thermostat, the one I paid to replace last December when the heating went out and no one noticed, and turned it off. Then I left the key on the counter beside the cake knife. I didn't leave a note. Sometimes silence is louder than anything you could write. The air outside was colder now. It bit at my fingers as I stepped onto the curb, suitcase wheels stuttering over cracked concrete. A softness settled over the city, streetlights humming above wet pavement, headlights flickering against storefront, glass, and that quiet hour just before people start turning in for the night. I didn't call a cab. I walked, not out of pride, not even out of defiance, but because I needed to feel the weight of leaving. Each step away from that apartment was a reminder. You don't belong where you're tolerated. Leah's place was a 20-minute walk, 30 if I dragged my feet. I took 45. By the time I got there, she'd already propped the front door open with a sneaker and left the hallway light on. I could see the shadow of her cat pacing near the welcome mat, like he was guarding something sacred. She didn't hug me when I stepped inside. Didn't ask questions, didn't press. She just took my suitcase with one hand and said, "Room's clean. Closet's empty. Bathroom's yours." It was the kindest thing anyone had said to me all day. The room smelled like lavender and wood. The sheets were crisp, tucked in with a kind of care that makes you feel noticed. A small basket sat on the nightstand. Tea bags, a lighter, a folded note that said, "For whatever you need." I sat on the bed, took off my boots, and stared at the floor for a long time. My feet didn't know what to do without tiptoeing. Eventually, Leah poked her head in. "Want something warm?" she asked. I shook my head. "No, but thank you." She nodded once and disappeared, and the door clicked softly shut. And there it was again. Stillness. But this time, it didn't feel lonely. It felt like permission. I changed into fresh clothes, then pulled out my sketchbook. Not to draw, just to hold it. To feel something I hadn't had all day. Continuity. I flipped to the drawing of the empty room, the candle-lit table, the door slightly open. No faces. I added one more detail. A hand on the doorknob, not opening it, not closing. It just deciding I didn't finish the sketch. Some moments are meant to stay unfinished. A week passed. Then another. I didn't tell them where I'd gone. No forwarding address. No update in the family group chat. I didn't block anyone, just stopped answering. The silence didn't scream. It hummed. Soft, steady, cleansing. The apartment I left behind remained unvisited in my mind, like a house you drive past that once held a memory, but now just holds other people's noise. Mom texted once. "Hope you're doing okay. Let's talk soon." No mention of the birthday, or the party, or the key I left on the counter next to that half-cut cake. I never wrote back. Leah didn't hover. She gave me space, a gift I didn't know I'd been needing for years. In the mornings, we'd pass each other in the kitchen. She'd nod. I'd nod. And in those tiny exchanges, I found something like healing. The kind that asks for nothing, yet gives you everything. I spent my evenings at the little bookstore again. They started reserving the back table for me. The one with the shaky lamp and the chipped teacup someone once left behind. I filled sketchbooks faster than I ever had. Rooms, candles, windows, women walking away from doors they once waited behind. It wasn't loud revenge. It wasn't angry. But it was real. One rainy afternoon, I received a letter. Handwritten. No return address. Just a folded page, familiar handwriting. I realized too late that presence doesn't equal love, and noise doesn't equal celebration. I'm sorry. I don't know if that matters. But I wanted you to hear it. You deserved more than what we gave you. If you ever want to come back, the door is open. It was signed Mom. I held it for a while. Let it rest between my palms like something delicate and unnecessary. Then I folded it back, placed it gently in the drawer beside my bed, and lit a small candle for myself. Not to wait, not to wish, but to honor the quiet decision that had changed everything. I didn't go back. I didn't reply. But I didn't hate her either. Some stories don't need confrontation to end. Some just need the main character to finally walk away, not to punish anyone, but to finally choose herself. And that was the gift I gave myself. Even if no one else did.